of Ephesians. As Charlie read for us earlier, we're going to work through the first 14 verses. Really, the message is sort of like one long expression that starts here and goes all the way through verse 21 in chapter 3. But that's a pretty big piece to try to digest in one message this morning. In our former church, I last preached a sermon series on Ephesians in 2014. And looking back at my notes from those times, the whole focus really of my messages was on what was happening to those Ephesians and the others in that area of Asia Minor, now modern Turkey. But as I reflected on this today, the message of Ephesians seems like it's maybe even more appropriate for us in our time here in 2024. The message of Ephesians is primarily one of encouragement. Paul knew the circumstances and the persecution and the stresses and strains that those folks were under. And as our culture has grown more distant from basic Christian values and views, it seems that today our situation is much more like that of those people 2,000 years ago than it was even in the last time I preached this, about 8 years ago. I think 8 years ago, what a remarkable change time has. 8 years ago, most of us were pretty comfortable with the view that America was primarily, basically, a Christian nation, a nation founded on Christian principles. And it's very open to public debate today, whether that's true in any significant sense at all. A Barna Corporation research just last year found that 40% or so of the population, the general population of the United States, says they are Christian. But when follow-up questions were asked about specific beliefs and specific biblical doctrines, that number actually shrunk down to maybe about 10%. Think about the similarities between the position of that Christian church in Ephesus and our church in America today. If that statistic, 10% of our population is really Christian, what a small majority that is versus the largely pagan population. And many in that pagan culture were even very militant in their philosophies and very militant toward the fledgling Christian body there. Remember that when Paul preached in a very large amphitheater there, probably to an audience of upward of 50,000 people, they couldn't hear his message, and they rose and shouted at the top of their lungs, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians," their primary idol that they worshiped. They kept that shouting going. Historians say probably for about 2 hours. What a tremendous burst of energy just to stifle the preaching or the proclamation of God's truth in the gospel. Then, and today, there's very open and maybe more often hidden occultism, very much a part of the culture. if you pay attention to what's happening in movies or on the internet, advertisements, magazines, wherever you look, that occult